Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling one of the absolute giants of the 20th century, the Soviet Union. We're talking about an empire built on a revolutionary idea, an empire that completely reshaped the world and then just vanished.
First off, you've got to wrap your head around the sheer scale of this place. We're talking about a country so enormous it stretched across 11 time zones, 1/6 of all the land on Earth. I mean, it wasn't just a country, it was practically a world unto itself. And then, poof, in what felt like the blink of an eye, geopolitically speaking, it was just gone. This massive state, a fixture on the world map for pretty much our parents' and grandparents' entire lives, just sort of disappeared. So that's the big question, right? How does that even happen? How does one of the most powerful empires in history just stop existing? Well, to figure out how it collapsed, we have to go back and understand how it was born, what it stood for, and see the deep cracks that were forming right under the surface. You see, the story of the Soviet Union doesn't really begin with a country or a border. It begins with an idea, a really powerful, revolutionary idea that was meant to change everything. Okay, so picture this. It's 1917. Vladimir Lenin and the Bolsheviks seize power, kicking out the old Russian Empire. But winning was the easy part. What followed was a totally devastating civil war. And it was out of that fire and chaos that in 1922, the USSR was officially born, a whole new kind of country, forged in revolution. And what's really fascinating is that the key to its entire ideology is hidden right there in the name. Soviet comes from the Russian word Sovet, which literally means council. The entire state was founded on this radical principle that power should belong to regular people, to councils of workers and soldiers. I mean, that was a complete break from all the monarchies and capitalist countries out there. And this was their official motto. But it wasn't just some catchy slogan for a bumper sticker. It was a global call to arms. This one phrase captured the whole identity of the early Soviet Union, to be the leader of a worldwide communist revolution. So, after Lenin's death, a new leader takes over, Joseph Stalin. And his vision was to take this largely agricultural nation and transform it into an industrial powerhouse. And he was willing to do it with absolute, total ruthlessness. This slide really shows the brutal, two-sided coin of the Stalin era. On one side, you've got this incredible ambition, turn the country into a modern industrial power, which, by the way, was critical in defeating Nazi Germany. But the cost? Well, it was staggering. Forcing peasants onto massive state-run farms led to a famine that killed millions. And at the same time, you have the Gulag labor camps and the Great Purge, where any perceived enemy was simply eliminated. Let this number sink in for a second. 27 million. That's the estimated number of Soviet citizens who died in World War II. It was the highest death toll of any of the Allied nations. It was a sacrifice that absolutely cemented the USSR's place as a world power, but it also left a scar that would never, ever heal. So, climbing out of the rubble of World War II, the Soviet Union is left standing as one of only two global superpowers. And this, right here, sets the stage for a completely new kind of conflict. The world basically split right down the middle. You had the Western Bloc, led by the United States and its NATO allies, all about market economies. And then you had the Eastern Bloc, led by the Soviet Union and its Warsaw Pact, built on a state-controlled command economy. This was the Cold War, a struggle that would last for decades. And make no mistake, Soviet power was immense. We're talking about the largest army in the world, total control over Eastern Europe, and at its height, the biggest arsenal of nuclear weapons on the planet. They were a force to be reckoned with. But it wasn't just about military might. The USSR showed off its power through some incredible scientific breakthroughs. I mean, when they launched Yuri Gagarin into orbit, becoming the first country to put a human in space, it sent a shockwave around the world. It was a huge statement about the power of their system. But here's the thing. Underneath that tough-as-nails exterior of a superpower, some really deep and ultimately fatal problems were growing. The economy was stagnating, the politics were rigid, and cracks were starting to form in the foundation of the whole union. So in 1985, a new leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, comes to power, and he sees the writing on the wall. He rolls out these two huge revolutionary policies.
First, glasnost, or openness, which brought a bit of transparency to a super-secretive government. And second, perestroika, or restructuring, which tried to inject some life into a dying economy. Now, the key thing here is he was trying to save the system, not tear it down. But it backfired. Big time. Instead of saving the Union, his reforms pretty much opened the floodgates. This new openness fanned the flames of nationalism. Then, in 1989, the Berlin Wall falls. By 1990, Soviet republics are declaring their independence. A failed coup attempt by the Old Guard in 1991 was the final nail in the coffin. And by December of that year, the Soviet Union was officially gone. So what's left of this empire that just vanished? Well, its legacy is incredibly complex. And for a lot of people who actually lived through it, their feelings about it are surprisingly conflicted. Just look at this. A poll from 2018 found that 2/3 of Russians, 2/3, said they regret the collapse of the Soviet Union. That is a staggering number. It points to this really powerful nostalgia for the Soviet era. So what's that all about? And when you dig into it, that nostalgia is usually tied to some very specific feelings. People remember a system that, for all its flaws, felt stable. They miss the pride of being a citizen of a global superpower. And for many, there's a memory of a stronger sense of community and national belonging that just seemed to evaporate after it all fell apart. Which leaves us with the final, really challenging question. How should we remember the USSR? Was it a noble experiment in equality that went horribly wrong, or was it an oppressive empire from the very start? Honestly, there are no easy answers here. It remains one of history's most ambitious, most influential, and most controversial projects, and it left behind a legacy that is still shaping our world today.